Good morning, David.
Hi, how you doing today?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, man.
Well, I
Just
want to talk about trusts from lawful money perspective.
yeah, that'd be good. I think maybe maybe we could just have a chat about um, um, a trustee that understands how to use lawful money so that he could be a good steward in behalf of the assets of the trust, right?
Right. So we have a trust registration and with the state, and then setting up bank accounts, of course, and that's where the lawful money demand would be made, right?
Yeah, it's interesting you said that because, like, okay, from like on, I mean, of course, everybody needs to look at their particular state to see what the laws are that govern trusts. But it's interesting that there's a common law, um, essentially, in regard to trusts on all the states. And what I mean by that is pretty much all 50 states have legislation passed in how they administrate trusts, right? So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, uniformity.
that's right, exactly. So there are some minor differences, when you get into Louisiana, you're talking about Roman civil
Uh-huh.
law and not English, common law. So there's some minor
Right.
differences, and you get into little quirks, like when you're using the land trust, you get in like in Florida or Tennessee. There's some things that, but they pretty much accept those style trusts in all 50 states. It's just understanding how your state wants to see it. But I'm going to speak to it from North Carolina
Uh-huh.
because that's where I am, and
Okay.
it's interesting. I went into to the bylaws of North Carolina, the general statutes. I call them bylaws, but general statutes. And
Uh-huh.
it's interesting. I'm going to pull it up in front of me here, right quick. But there's three trusts that the North Carolina recognizes as how do you say it? Business trusts.
Just your.
They call them business
Oh, okay.
trusts, and they recognize they. It's interesting. I'm just pulling it up now. I'm sort of rambling, but I'm pulling it up now. Um, they go on and they say the term business trust shall in this article shall mean any unincorporated association, including a Illinois land trust, a Delaware statutory trust, or a Massachusetts business trust, engaged
Mm-hmm.
in business or trade under a written instrument or declaration of trust, uh, which the beneficial interest therein is divided into shares, or it represents certificates of shares or of beneficial interest. So that's really interesting, right? Because
Uh-huh.
basically they're saying that you can do business in the state, and did you catch that it shall mean any unincorporated association? So it doesn't have to be,
Yeah.
incorporated under the state statutes. But what's really interesting here in North Carolina, for instance, is that these business trusts have full access to the courts.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
literally says you can sue and be sued. It like here
Right. A
in
full-fledged artificial person.
That's correct. That business trusts are hereby authorized and empowered to acquire real estate and interests therein, and to hold the same in their trust names, and may sue and be sued in their trust names, which
Mm-hmm.
is really really neat because um, you don't have to do any special filings with the Secretary of State. The trust exists because men got together. Men, I say men and women. A corporation of people, let's say, got together. When I say corporation, what I mean is more than one. Right? In other words, you and I form a corporate body
Uh-huh.
because there's two of us, right?
Right. Right.
So we got together and decided that we were going to create a trust, and we declared the trust. We have a declaration of our trust. We expressed it. We wrote it down, and we have beneficial interest between the two of us, or maybe for a third party, and that party, that beneficial interest is represented in shares. Um,
Uh-huh.
Once that happens, you know you then can engage in business. And the beauty of
Right.
that is, you know, you've got some privacy here. You know, you really do have some unbelievable privacy, especially, you know, if you think about when you ride up and down the road with any vehicle. Most people, when they ride up and down the road, they take their vehicle and they put it in their legal name, right? They
Hmm.
title it to their
Well,
legal name, right?
yeah, can you hold that thought for a second? There's two things I want the listener to be aware of.
Sure, go
One
ahead.
is a distinction between incorporation with the state and registration with the state
Right.
when you form a trust. And then you touch on that briefly, but the other thing is you mentioned Louisiana has some differing law, and that's according to the Uniform Commercial Code, the UCC, has been adopted in 49 of the 50 states, excluding Louisiana. So Congress comes up with uniform laws, and it's a very strong suggestion, but it's also through the Uniform Commercial Code that you can probably find what you're reading out of North Carolina in your state. Maybe you can describe the process of actually finding what you're reading there too. So those two things, and then we'll get back to going into the vehicle trusts and the security trusts. Is that okay?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, for instance, what I did is I went to the North Carolina General Statutes, and you can go to any of those places and look up business trusts, and I found it at
Oh,
you know, Article well, it's Article 8 under business trusts, Section 39. And anyway, the point is it's not so much under UCC in a sense. In a sense, it is, because, you know, that's how we're doing business, and that's
yeah, business,
controlled.
yeah,
It's
business.
controlled by the Uniform Commercial Code. But so what you have here is a set of laws which administrates and persons that are going to do business within the state, right? So effectively, the trust is going to do business in the state, and therefore it contemplates, you know, using the state. Now, the interesting thing
Uh-huh.
is you don't actually have to go to the Secretary of State and make any payments to the Secretary of State, or make any filings with the Secretary of State in regard to what you're doing. Now, having said that, it's probably a good idea, if your business trust is going to hold property on a particular county, like for instance if it's going to hold real estate or something like that, you know,
Uh-huh.
it would probably be a good idea for you to go file a something on the county register, on the county level, you know, the county clerk and recorder, or the register of deeds, depending on, you know, where you are,
Uh-huh.
to say, hey, you know, look, this trust is doing business on the county, right? So I don't know. I mean, you don't have to do that, you know, because
Uh-huh.
clearly, if you're holding real estate, there's a warranty deed to trustee, which kind of shows, you know, that the trust is in existence, and the trustee holds the property or the real estate in the in the name of, in his name, you know, for the trust type of thing, right? Um,
Okay.
you know, when I
Great.
say his or her, you know what I mean. It's gender
Uh-huh.
neutral. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
The
So,
general person is he. Okay, then, yeah, I didn't want to get sidetracked on it. So what about security of trusts?
well, that's the great thing, is that, like, I'm going to speak to it just for a second about, you know, when you ride up and down the road in your car, that's
Hmm.
pretty much the most liability. You know, you're going to have, you got tremendous liability when you're you know, behind the wheel of a 2-ton vehicle, you know, running 70 miles an hour, right? I mean, people
Sure.
put so
Sure.
much trust in these machines, you know, and they don't think that, hey, something could, you know, literally go catastrophically wrong. And
Uh-huh.
well, so what I'm saying there is that the liability that it opens you up to in personal capacity, if you're let's say individual capacity, you know, if you're like 99% of the people out there who take their everything and put it in their legal name, well, it's really easy for an attorney to look up every asset owned in legal name, and now that estate is going to be used as security. You know, if the insurance policy that's on the vehicle is if there's a claim on the insurance policy, and the claim exceeds the value, Well, then they're going to come to the estate and they're going to say, sell off what you have in the estate to satisfy the judgment, right? Well, if each piece of property is held in a different trust, then basically, if there's an accident of somebody, let's say somebody's using the truck, for instance, that's held in a personal property trust or something like that, then what that means is that that truck is basically the only value that's in that particular entity. So the insurance policy has value. So if somebody was ever, injured, you got the insurance policy to try to satisfy any claims. But beside that, you've got the assets that's in the trust, and then you have whatever, the operator and the owner had in their estate. And what I mean by that is that most people who put everything in their legal name, they're the owner operator. But the interesting thing is that whoever the registered owner is down there at the Department of Motor Vehicles, that's who they consider to be the driver. Okay, so if the owner of the vehicle was ABC Trust, that's the driver. Okay, now the operator is the man or woman who's got their hands on the wheel, right? And because most people put it in their legal name, you've got the same party, right? But it's possible that, let's say you had an owner of a fleet of buses, for instance, and let's call it, Bus Drivers LLC or something, right? And then let's say I'm the driver. I happen to be, I'm driving it for Bus Drivers LLC. Well, the operator is me, but the operator is me, but the driver is Bus Drivers LLC. Both parties are liable for any misdeed, right? Or accident.
Two examples just came to my mind.
Sure.
One of them was Ted Kennedy. He had a tragic accident that drowned his girlfriend at the time. And out of that, I heard that he was bashed severely because they sued the driver, as you're describing it, and all they got was a waterlogged car, the family of the woman that died and drowned. Now, that's kind of a bad example as far as equity goes. But then, again, the other one was O.J. Simpson. He wrote a book in his personal capacity. All his wealth is held in various trusts. Right. But he wrote a book in his personal capacity, and the family of the victim of whatever actually sued him, and he just let it go into default, so they ended up with the proceeds. It was like he threw him a bone, as you described it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So those are both wonderful examples in a sense of how trusts can protect your estate. Because effectively, once you put it in trust, you're not the owner anymore. The trustee owns it. The trustee is the owner of the property. So the legal title is in the trustee. So the beauty of that is, seeing as how you're no longer the owner, you no longer, if you took everything that you once possessed and owned, if you will, and you put it in trust, then you don't have, in effect, you don't have an estate, because you're not the owner. And so if somebody were to come along and say, hey, we're going to get a judgment against you, well, you're like a legal pauper, because file your judgment, but I don't own anything, right? So this is the things that the rich do, how they retain their riches. And it's simple, it's cheap insurance. So, back to the vehicle, the car, you're riding down the road, that's a tremendous liability. And if the vehicle is placed in trust, and let's say you had another trust company be the trustee, the beautiful thing about that is now, if you are you getting let's say you're just riding down the road, and some law enforcement officer, and I mean they're not supposed to do this, but they do it, and I used to. I had a negative, just because of my experiences, a negative view of law enforcement. Now I just, God bless them, man. They're doing their job. They got a tough job to do, and I don't, God bless them.
Well,
So,
yeah.
but
And
they
yeah,
sometimes will fall behind you, and they'll search the tag because something looks, maybe they're looking for a particular style truck or something, Well, if what they pull up is a trust name, and the trustee is a trust name, and you've got privacy, and then take it out of LEO, because you're not trying to somehow duck the law or anything. You just want your privacy. Let's say we're all familiar with people having road rage, right? And let's just say you accidentally cut somebody off in traffic, and some guy takes down your license plate. The last thing you want them to do is to show up on your front doorstep.
Yeah.
If they go and trace your license plate, which anybody with access to a computer can do in less than 5 minutes, all they're going to get is the name of a trust, and the trustee is another trust. That's all they're going to see, which is beautiful, because now you have your privacy. You're keeping the crazy people off your front door, right?
Yeah.
And
you're not leading trouble back to your doorstep.
That's right. So you got privacy, you got protection. I was in a traffic accident one year where it just so happens that, let me just share this with you. This happened to me, I want to say 2002, maybe 2001, 2000, something like that. A school bus pulled out in front of, we were all rolling about 55 miles an hour, and a school bus came off a ramp, and the driver didn't even look. Just pulled right off the ramp into traffic. Well, everybody stomps on the brakes, and I come to a skidding stop, and just front of my bumper lightly touches the back of the bumper of the vehicle in front. But I was the last in line, right? So
but it wasn't the bus. It was another private vehicle.
I was driving a private vehicle, and there was 3 vehicles that stacked up. The first, obviously the first vehicle hit the bus, and I was the third in the rear, and we all stacked up behind. So, all right.
Okay.
Everybody in front of them sued me. Now, we go to mitigation, right? And so we're sitting there in front of, mitigation is just the deal where you're sitting in front of a quasi-judge. Typically it's a lawyer or a retired judge, and they try to work it out without going to court, right? And I had already done all the calculations of linear momentum and all that, and shown that, the claims that were being made against me were false. But nevertheless, the point is when I got there, there was 8 lawyers sitting around the table in support of their clients. They were all suing me, and I said, boys, you guys haven't done your homework. Literally, I just leaned back and said, y'all haven't done your homework. And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, what I mean is I don't own anything. I don't even own the shirt on my back. And I said, what you're going to have access to is that insurance policy. And then I went to questioning the lady who was there at the table, and it was shown that it only took about 5 questions to show that she was a liar, and that she was just trying to get money out of the deal, right? The point is that after they saw that they weren't going to get paid, they ended up having to settle inside the terms of the insurance policy, because where else are they going to get any additional funds? There's, and so it protected me from the standpoint of a frivolous lawsuit by somebody who just wanted to come and take,
Yeah, isn't that the entire object of no fault anyway? It just stays within the insurance companies.
That's the idea. So when you bring in people who are literally trying to get rich off of mistakes here and there, and they're not truthful, like this particular lady had a pre-existing condition, and she was going to go ahead and try to use this to get rich, And it's funny, they came to the table and they said, we I mean, our proposal is 500,000, and I said I'll give you 32,000, and they said they came back and they went up. I think they went up to 550, and I said okay, I'll give you 30, and they said, well, we're going in two separate directions, and I said, yeah, I know, and if you keep talking, I'm gonna get to zero real quick. you know. And so there, I just had full confidence because, I don't own anything. I'm not a legal owner of anything. So with that in mind, I become a legal pauper, and I can have confidence, and my trustees that hold the estates, that hold the properties, they know how to use lawful money. They are well trained and educated in how to open up checking accounts and use lawful money. And not only do they know the operation of how to obtain lawful money, they know why they can do it. And David, I'd like for you to talk about that for just a second. It's not important it is important that you know you can, but it's more important to know why you can, right?
Well, I think, yeah, right there, the remedy was designed for member banks, quoting, but that's basically followed by the definition of state banks, and any member bank is entitled to the remedy of making demand and redeeming lawful money, as described in the Fed Act and Title 12, Section 411 of the United States Code. So that would also include, in member banks, any artificial entity that's recognized by law, like we began with in this coffee chat, is that these trusts are entitled to, by law, to get their put in the demand and transact business in lawful money rather than legal tender or private credit from the Fed, if you prefer. So that's basically it, is in its simplicity, how trusts and trust accounts in the trust department of the bank. And I think what I was really looking at, though, is the difficulty the average person has in finding somebody knowledgeable to trust. And so hopefully, we can come up with some more coffee chats in lawfulmoneytrust.com that'll help people to find a reliable trustee.
Well, thank you for saying that, because that's exactly right. I mean, you're going to want your trustee to be educated so that the trustee knows that they know that they can do, because, the law doesn't have any respect to persons. So you're right. You could be the manager of an LLC, or you could be the president of a S corporation, or you could be the trustee of a trust, and all three have just as much right to make a demand for lawful money as the other. So, or you could be operating in individual capacity as a sole proprietor.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, it's important that the trustee have, or whoever is operating the transaction, administrating the transaction, have knowledge that understands, okay, I know how to do this, but I also know why I can do this. And that's the point where, we come in at lawfulmoneytrust.com to teach people, and that's the point, is if you know why you can do it, if you're ever challenged, well, you're on solid ground. You know exactly what you're doing, and it's just a simple matter. There's no fear. Any fear that you might have had is dispelled because, hey, you're pretty solid here in the law, and you understand that these remedies are written into law, right?
Yeah, that's just for sample. Now, that's the name of a blog you'll find on the homepage of Lawful Money Trust, and it explains that in the remedy being written for member banks, that covers covers any kind of individual or artificial person.
Right. That's exactly right. Well, hey, Dave, it's about 24 minutes. Wow, this 25 minutes just flew by, man. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, hey, thanks for the chat. I think if we'll just keep it about 24, 25 minutes each time, we'll do okay. So I appreciate it, and have a great day, all right?
All right, you too.
Okay,
Thanks.
see you, man. Bye.